Well, speaking of someone that does things a little differently, Shay, you ready to talk some Mississippi State Mike Leach football?
Hell yeah. Start the hype train, baby.
All right, how about this one for you, Shane? I mean, we know disappointing end of the season, lost the Egg Bowl, lost the bowl game, went 7-6 overall, but we finished fourth in the SEC West. And hell, if we had a kicker, this is probably a 9-win football team. Mm-hmm. We know the debacle there against Memphis. That was also, special teams got to get corrected there in Starkville. But how about this stat, Shane? 3 times under Mike Leach, he's had a third-year starting quarterback, and every single time they've won at least 9 games that season. So, it's lining up well for Mississippi State to have a big year. Also, on that same stat, third-year quarterbacks, each time he's had that, his quarterback has thrown for over 5,000 yards. So, my goodness, I mean, this Will Rogers hype, we are firmly on board, and it wouldn't be crazy to sit here and say that their quarterback's going to throw for 5,000 yards, which would shatter the record he's already got down there at Mississippi State. You know what?
And that's what you see a lot with the Pirates offense. When he's able to not demand as much from a quarterback, not have to make the decision as much, he can kind of loosen up a little bit, and you just see the game flow better, the chemistry, the quickness at the line of scrimmage when Rodgers is now going to be able to call his own numbers. I think that's very important because now you've got a head coach on the football field making decisions in real time.
Yeah, and how about this? We love to hit on this returning production. This is the wildest one we've done. It's unfortunately we waited this long to get to it. Passing yards returning, Shane, 100% for Mississippi State. Now, that's impressive enough because it's the Mike Leach system. But how about rushing yards, Shane?
Yeah.
100% returning. It's like, my goodness. Receiving yards, 69%, which is still a lot higher than others. And they're bringing back 7 receivers, Shane, that caught at least 29 passes. So a ton of experience there on the receiving core. 63% of the offensive line starts are returning with, having to replace 2 offensive tackles. That's kind of the biggest question mark on the offensive side, maybe for the entire team heading into camp. But how about this? On the defensive side, Shane, 86% of the tackles return. Everyone on the 2 deep on the defensive line, and they're all 21 or 22 years old. I mean, this is an incredibly experienced team across the board. 78% of the sacks return and 82% of the interceptions return. If that don't get you fired up, I don't know what does.
That's the thing. This is why I'm so high on Mississippi State. Just not only what they're bringing back, but who they're bringing back. It's just about every crucial position that you need in college football right now. You see this year after year, especially like a team, and I probably shouldn't bring this up when we're trying to highlight Mississippi State, but look at Ole Miss. With all of these guys that have transferred in, there's going to be growing pains down there. There is going to be trial and error down there. There's going to be mistakes being made down there. I don't think we get that with a team like Mississippi State. I think out of, maybe a handful, of programs that are coming back this year will be ready game one. That's why I love Mississippi State so much, is just because I don't think we're going to have the hiccups that we did the start of last season.
Right. Now, where they did have hiccups, though, Shane, was defending explosive passing plays. And I love the fact that Mississippi State attacked that relentlessly in the transfer portal. Listen to all these defensive backs they're bringing in, Shane. Marcus Banks from Alabama, who, had he stayed at Alabama, he would have started in the national championship game. He had 8 appearances last year, 6 tackles and an interception. They're bringing in Jackie Matthews from West Virginia. He was a former junior college All-American in the state of Mississippi, 44 tackles and a pick last season. Jordan Morant from Texas. He was the number 10 safety prospect in the country just 2 years ago. He played 5 games last year. Hunter Washington from Florida State, a former 4-star. He was the number 19 corner just last year. And then at receivers, we're pretty covered at receiver, but they added Justin Robinson from Georgia, former four-star. Jordan Mosley from Northwestern, who was headed to Tennessee, Shane, under old Pruitt. Uh-oh. Now, here's the biggest one of all. We usually overlook this completely.
Kicker.
Two kickers, Shane. Oh, my goodness. Massimo Biscardi from Coastal Carolina, 46 of 57 field goals in his college career. So a very, very reliable guy, as well as a guy from North Colorado by the name of Ben Rabin, 13 of 21 in last season. He's also punts. And hell, they're bringing in a punter too, Shane. George Georgopoulos from UMass, started 4 years at UMass. So, I mean, we're fixing the special teams issues, needless to say, here in Starkville.
Yeah, I love because a lot of times when you look at these transfers, it's like you go into the grocery store and you're hungry. You don't really have a game plan. You're just trying to get whatever just catches your eye,
right,
and try to make it work when you get there at the house. Mississippi State was different. They're making a meal and they've got the recipe and they know the exact ingredients they need, and that's exactly what Leach and company did. They went out and they fixed what the problem was. They even double secured the kicker. It's like this is the kind of moves I want to see in a transfer portal. Is just making your program better, immediate impact. So I love the moves.
Yeah, and when you go position by position breakdown, Shane, I mean, we are talking, I think it's probably the most underrated quarterback room in the country. It's got to be the best position group at Mississippi State with Will Rogers, who's a legitimate Heisman Trophy contender. And we talked about this at Media Days with our guest Stefan, who covers the team. Hell, it's going to be tough to keep Sawyer Robertson, the backup, off the field. And that's got nothing to do with Will Rogers not being outstanding. But for all indications, Robertson is basically ready to take this thing over. So God forbid something happens injury-wise. We got confidence in our backup, and we're confident in the future of that position. So I think Mississippi State, throw in Daniel Greek, the redshirt freshman. We have got three quarterbacks here that probably rival any group Mike Leach has ever worked with.
Yeah, and with all that returning, you're creating competitive depth, Mike. Not just at the quarterback position, but if a man goes down, you've got somebody that can come in. They don't have to, but you'll notice a lot of teams in the SEC, they had to fill holes, and they're going to have some young players in there. And this is like kind of what I was saying at the start. It's just you're not going to see that with Mississippi State, and I think that's just again another added benefit for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, and then these running backs, Shane. I mean, we're bringing back both of our go-to guys here, Dylan Johnson, Jaquavian Marks. And what they really are in this system, Shane, they're like short yardage receivers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How about this? Jaquavian Marks had 86 catches last season, which is more than any running back in the country had. And Dylan Johnson was not far off with 63. So, I mean, these guys get it done anyway, and they just make this offense so versatile.
They really do. Yeah. You hate to almost call them running backs, It's like auxiliary players. That's what they should be. H-backs.
And then a receiver, Shane, Jaden Wally, who starred as a freshman in 2020. It's time for him to step up. We got Austin Williams, who was down there at SEC Media Days. He's the go-to man on third down. He's one of the surest-handed guys in the country. Lulu Griffin, the returner, one of the best returners in the country. Got to get him more involved on the offensive side of the ball, but he obviously has huge, big play potential. Ra Thomas, I believe he's a redshirt freshman, Shane. How about this stat? He only caught 18 passes last year.
Yeah.
But he had 5 touchdowns. I mean, this guy's a big play waiting to happen. Rufus Harvey is a local kid they've been touting for years. It's time for him to step up. Caleb Ducking, Antonio Harmon, and then Jameer Calvin. I mean, my God, Shane, we go 9 deep here at receiver, and you need that in this offense.
Yeah, absolutely. Any given Saturday, too. Good luck trying to figure out who gets the touchdowns in the game.
Right. At the offensive line, again, Cameron Jones is back. LaQuinton Sharp, who may be the best center in the SEC. Combine those with Albert Reese, Nick Jones, and Cole Smith. We got some players to work with here, but the one to keep your eye on, Shane, of course, they lost Charles Cross, number 9 overall pick to the Seattle Seahawks. They're bringing in from the junior college ranks, Percy Lewis, 6'8", number 5 overall junior college prospect. If he's ready to play, which you just never know with these junior college kids, but if he's ready, I think Mississippi State may not miss a beat, as crazy as that is to say.
God, I try to think about how successful I would have been if I was 6'8", Mike, you know? Yeah. I mean, you know what? I probably wouldn't look so heavy if you just stretched me out a little bit. But, yeah, 6'8". Golly, that is mad. Have you ever been – I mean, it's hard to imagine until you see a 6'8" athlete, especially an offensive lineman.
Right.
Those guys are literally – like, look at your door frame. That is this man. So a lot of space taken up. We just hope he hits the ground running, you know, because he's got some big shoes to fill.
Yeah, no doubt. And like I said, the D-line, man, we got everyone back on the 2 deep back for Mississippi State. Randy Charlton, Cameron Young, Nathan Pickering, DeMonte Russell, and maybe the biggest impact guy is someone that missed last season due to injury, Jordan Davis. Shane, he was starring in camp last year. The former Alabama commit. If they're going to look for extra pressure up front, it's going to come from Jordan Davis, who he's been in college a long time, but he's coming back for a money year. This has the potential to be a really, really outstanding defensive line for Mississippi State.
And one they're going to need, brother. I think at time, some of the games we lost last year, I think a lot of it had to do with that defensive front, not getting the pressure, not forcing a 3 and out. There's, after a while, you stay on that field. That's one thing about the Pirates offense. You ain't got much time. So
right.
That's definitely a position group that needs to step up.
And then we're loaded at experience at linebacker too. Shane Tyrese Wheat, Jet Johnson, Nathan Watson, who was down there at SEC Media Days, Ty Cooper, Nick Mitchell, Deshaun Page. All 3 guys led the team in tackles back this season. They did lose Aaron Brule, who transferred out, but I think they've upgraded because you were not going to keep Jet Johnson off the field this year. Mississippi State linebackers are key to this defense, and this experience is going to be huge.
How disappointed would my mom be if she named me Jet? You know? It's like, I should have called him Shane, you know?
And then the defensive backs, Emmanuel Forbes, Shane, he's got more interceptions than any active SEC player. He's also got more pick 6 than any active SEC player. He's going to be our lockdown corner. DeCamarion Richardson, Jalen Green, Colin Duncan, and Sean Preston to go with the transfers we already mentioned. Marcus Banks, Hunter Washington, Jackie Matthews, DeCarlos Washington, and Jordan Morant. So, again, we've got a mix of talent and experience on the back end that we just didn't have last year at Mississippi State. And that's despite the fact they lost a guy that was a 3rd-round NFL draft pick.
I know, man. Yeah, again, competitive depth on both sides of the ball, and that's what you got to have, especially on that defense, because they do spend a lot of time on the field.
Mm-hmm. But, all right, Shane, enough talking about all that, because I know what you wait for on all these previews.
Undefeated. No, I'm just kidding.
The optimistic breakdown of the upcoming season. And, hell, we already know week 1, but we still got to mention it. Memphis coming to town. Cousin Shane's lock of the week. Revenge game is very real. Mississippi State's favored by like 20 points. So, easy 1-0, right?
Easy 1-0. This definitely won't come down to a punt. Yeah, this is gonna this game will be over by halftime, and I'm not just being optimistic, Mike. I really do think there's a little bit of grudge in the locker room thinking about this one. This game got stolen from them last year, and I don't think this company lets it happen again.
Now, week 2, we go to Arizona, who's one of the worst teams in the Pac-12.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, anytime you go that far, it's a little bit of an issue. They're kicking this thing off 11 o'clock Eastern. It's going to be a midnight type game. So crazy things happen on the West Coast that late night. But still, we got massive confidence that Mississippi State's going to win this game, right?
Oh yeah, enjoy that dry heat while you're out there, because this thing's they're gonna smoke them, brother. This Arizona, this ain't 10 years ago Arizona. This team is not that good, brother.
No.
So I think Mississippi State easily starts 2-0, and I think we're gonna see a lot of backups in both of these games, which is again very important, especially at that quarterback.
Now, how about now? This is the big Crossroads game here, Shane. This will determine a lot for Mississippi State and their opponent going on the road week 3 at LSU.
Yeah.
It's so hard to know what to make of this LSU Brian Kelly team till we see him in action. But what's your feelings on this one?
My feelings, and again, this is optimistic. So if you've not listened to the other shows, be sure to check them out. Mike's got them on our Twitter page. It's submitted in at the top there, so you can go right down and check them all out. Optimistically, Mike, I think Mississippi State comes out guns a-blazing in week 1. So by week 3, they have worked out any mistakes and kinks that they have in their system. I think LSU's still struggling to find their identity at this point. So I'm not saying that they are far and away better or more talented than LSU. I just think they are just better prepared at this point. So give me I don't know. I guess you wouldn't consider it an upset, because I really think Mississippi State is already hovering around that top 25 spot, so they'll definitely be in it by this time. So, victory, 3-0.
Yeah, and maybe, if Mississippi State was struggling with experience like they were the first 2 years under Mike Leach, 2 out of 3 on the road right out the gate would be an issue.
Right.
But with everything they've got, all the experience, all the talent, it's kind of hard to disagree with what you just said. I mean, again, it ain't easy. It's never easy to go into Baton Rouge and win a football game.
Yeah.
But I got confidence that Mississippi State can get it done. So I'm right there with you. 3-0 seems very reasonable.
Absolutely.
And 4-0 is looking just as likely, Shay, because we got Bowling Green coming to town.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
The ugliest logo, uniform. They should just start over. You know what I'm saying? They're not even green. It's the nastiest brown you've ever seen. I don't understand the thought process here. But, yeah, this is another one. Bowling Green, this is an easy victory. Mississippi State's 4-0, and they are going, brother. I think by this point, optimistically, we've got a quarterback that's hovering around 1,200 yards passing. You know what I'm saying?
At least. He may have more.
Absolutely.
Or did you mean for just this one game?
Maybe just this game. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it depends. This feels like a nooner. That's the only downside, is it feels like it's going to be an early game. Probably not a lot of eyes on it, but this will be a tune-up game. We're working on Rogers' Heisman, his list here, and he'll have plenty of opportunities to spike those numbers here against Bowling Green.
Now here's where it gets serious, Shane. One of the toughest months of any team in the country. Texas A&M comes to Davis Wade Stadium. Gonna need those cowbells to step up. Of course, they beat Texas A&M on the road, so certainly not sitting here saying they can't get it done. But with revenge on A&M's mind, and this is going to be one hell of a fight. And to me, it's a complete coin toss.
This one, optimistically, Mike, is a tough game for me to because one thing that I like about it, it's a sneaky trap game for the Aggies. It's nestled right in there between Arkansas and Alabama. So if I'm being optimistic, brother, how can I say Mississippi State doesn't have a shot to beat Texas A&M? You know what I'm saying? I'm not quite saying it's a 50-50 game, but it's a game that can be overlooked. This is one of those games that you look at Jimbo's resumes and you say, oh, shit, yeah, Mississippi State got him that year, so but it is so tough because I've got the Aggies winning it all, brother. So as much as I love Mississippi State and I think they're underdogs, I just can't pencil in a victory here without the stars being lined. So even optimistically, I'm going to say it's a loss. But I think it's a close game, brother. I think it comes down to the fourth quarter.
Well, I'm going to pull a cousin Shane and say they'll get one of the next two here. So it's either A&M or the following week is another tricky one because Arkansas comes to town. Arkansas has beaten Mississippi State both years under Mike Leach. So, some serious revenge factor for Mississippi State. Hell, had they had a kicker, they would have beat Arkansas last year. So, I think they get one of these two, but getting both of them would be incredibly, incredibly tough because we're basically flip-flopped on A&M and Arkansas. I'm riding the Hogs trade. You're riding the Aggies trade. And, I think Mississippi State certainly can get one of these games, but I think after these two, they do have one loss.
And I think they have a better shot here with Arkansas, and a lot of that has to do with scheduling because, again, you got to remember Arkansas is going through a gauntlet, man. They got Texas A&M, then they got Alabama. I mean, there's a real chance that they lose both of those games, and they're spiraling.
Right.
And you think about, Arkansas in years past, they have a tough time bouncing back from those little slicks. So I'm going to be optimistic here for Mississippi State and assume Arkansas dropped those two games. And if that's the case, I like Mississippi State's odds to get a victory here. So, give me a victory over the Hogs.
Yeah, and for any Razorbacks yelling, I mean, you make a great point that, last year when there was so much hype with that Georgia game, they lost it. Then they turned around and lost to Ole Miss on that classic. And then they threw up an egg against Auburn. So certainly, they not saying that means they're going to happen again, but there's something to that where, they've got to stay on edge because it is not going to be easy going into Mississippi State and getting that win.
Absolutely. And again, we're talking optimism here. When I was talking Arkansas, I was looking at best case scenario, and this wasn't a ball game because if Arkansas does come off getting a victory off one of those two teams, I think they're in good spirits and a good spot to compete. But if for some reason they drop both of those, that's a tough place to go into with them cowbells ringing.
Now, how in the hell can you have him winning this game and winning that? That's my favorite comment. We'll get that tomorrow. You know what?
Yeah, well, they just take 10 seconds of the show, just like, God, this is why I don't listen, Now,
here's another tricky one, Shane. This one's on the road at Kentucky. Yeah. Now, you beat Kentucky last year, outplayed them big time. That was in Starkville, though, and there's so much hype with Kentucky. And hell, we went on this show, said Kentucky could win 10, 11 football games. They're certainly capable. But I like Mississippi State to go on the road. This is why you want the veteran team that's experienced all these games. Hell, this is a program. Don't forget to win and won at Texas A&M, one of the toughest places in the country to win. They did it last year. Again, it's not going to be easy, but I think they can beat Kentucky on the road.
Yeah, definitely not easy, but this has the makings for a shootout.
Yeah,
and if I'm putting my chips in on a quarterback coach combo that I would want to win in a shootout, I'm going to take Mississippi State every time.
Right.
The only real shot Kentucky has here, in my honest opinion, is that running game was discovered and it's back in full force, and they're able to slow down the tempo of Mississippi State. And if that defense gels, if that defense comes together and can force some 3-and-outs, I see a shot that Kentucky wins this game, and it's closer to a 50-50 in my opinion, but I'm pretending that in my mind that this is a shootout and give me Will Rogers and company.
Now, probably the one game I can't talk myself into Mississippi State winning, Shane.
No.
At Alabama. I mean, you could line up Alabama on any point in the schedule, but if you want to talk at the very end of this gauntlet, just makes it all the more difficult for Mississippi State to go in there. Alabama's waxed you the last 2 years, and I'm not saying you'll get waxed in this game, but it's very, very likely Mississippi State escapes Alabama with a win. But hell, crazier things have happened.
Hey, maybe one day this will be a rivalry again, I mean, I know they're not that far. It's kind of crazy, the geography of these two, but this is a tough one for me because I just think, one thing that I base my optimistic odds on is being well prepared at the start of the season. But one of those teams that's always prepared is Nick Saban's Crimson Tide. So it's in Tuscaloosa. I just don't see optimistically a shot that the Bulldogs have here.
Yeah. Now they get 2 weeks to prepare for Auburn at home. Yeah, we gotta take Mississippi State in that one, right?
Oh yeah, no, this definitely. I mean, it would take a lot for me to. I mean, I'd have to see a lot from Auburn to be convinced that this is even a close game. Really, I think at this point, I think there's a good shot Mississippi State's a 2-3 touchdown favorite. You know, that's just where optimistically I find them. But man, it's Auburn just has too many question marks. You know, it's tough to predict what they're going to do or what they can't do. You know what Mississippi State's bringing. You know, so
Right.
yeah, give me the Bulldogs here.
Now,
Oh God, I forgot about this one.
now
Damn.
Georgia comes to town. I mean, there's always a West team every
Yeah.
year that's like, my God, we got to face Georgia. But unfortunately for Mississippi State, it's not
Yeah.
Arkansas like 2 years in a row. It's Mississippi State this year that's got to face the Georgia Bulldogs. On the bright side, you're getting them at home. You're getting those cowbells. Georgia is no player on that roster is used to that damn sound ringing in their ears. So maybe you catch them somehow napping here. I believe this would be right after the Tennessee game. So maybe there's a little factor there. But again, I've said it and I've said it and I've said it. I think if you're catching Georgia, you want to get them early because I
Yeah.
think by the end of the year they're going to be a fine-tuned machine. So again, this is one where can't really find a way to talk myself into Mississippi State beating Georgia. Although
No.
hell, who knows? Crazier things have happened, but I ain't predicting it.
I always think about like when coaches see the schedule because you always focus on like a year and you may peek at what's going on next year. But there was a moment when the Pirate looked at that paper and he saw Georgia coming to town on November 12th, 2022. And I can only imagine a little bit of like, shit, you know, who picked this thing? So, yeah, this is a tough spot. You would definitely love to have another East opponent this year because, honestly, this Mississippi State Bulldogs, if they were in the East, Mike, clear-cut number 2 favorite for me. No ifs, ands, or buts. It'd be Georgia, then Mississippi State. That's how good I think this program will be. But they're just not good enough for the Bulldogs. So, unfortunately, I've got another loss here.
And let's not forget, Shane, before we move off from this game, it was the COVID year. Mississippi State was down like 50 scholarship guys. They went into Athens. They could have quit like a lot of teams
It
did.
was close.
They
was close.
nearly knocked off Georgia. And the only thing that saved Georgia was old JT Daniels came in there, threw for like 400 yards, saved the day. Again, I know that was a long time ago, but you know there's hope there for Mississippi State, you know?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Now, next week, no hope for this other team. ETSU's coming to town. I know they knocked off Vanderbilt, but this ain't Vanderbilt you're playing. This is Mississippi State. This is another pick-your-score type game.
Yeah, I'm just glad this is the only East Tennessee school on their schedule this year. So give me a victory here. This one's a great placement, too, just because you're coming off that Georgia defeat. You know, again, I still think it's going to be a tough ball game, but now you got a nice little tune-up here with ETSU. Kind of get your bearing straight before the greatest game is played next year.
Yeah, and the regular season's finale, of course, the Egg Bowl
yeah.
at Ole Miss, Thanksgiving. You've lost to Ole Miss 2 in a row. This is a game you got to get if you're Mississippi State every year, but especially after losing 2 in a row. And I think they get it done, Shane. I think they snap the streak, and I think Ole Miss will be a good football team. I'm not sitting here down on them.
Yeah.
I think they can win 8 or 9 football games, but I think Mississippi State's a better team this year.
Oh, yeah, I do too. And I've said it all off season. You know, I mean, they're more worried about that damn dog down there than they are what is going to be back here at quarterback. So I think this is Mississippi State's year. They'll have the Egg Bowl victory. Maybe there'll be some rumors floating around, Lane's going somewhere. I don't know. But optimistically, I think it's going to be a hell of a game regardless. This is always a good game, great games. One of my favorite games, if not the favorite game, because it is during Thanksgiving, and it's just like, it just goes. It's like it's a side dish that belongs on that Thanksgiving feast. You know what I'm saying? Sweet potato casserole and the Egg Bowl. So I'm all in on this one. It's going to be a great game, but I just think Mississippi State's I think they get the victory this year.
And how crazy is it, Shane? I mean, I think we're sitting here at 9-3, maybe 10-2. If a game goes a different way or two here from Mississippi State, they pull an upset on the schedule. But even if they do go 9-3, given who those 3 losses potentially are to, we're talking a top 10 football team in the country.
Yeah.
But that's just the gauntlet of the SEC. You know it?
Yeah, that's it, man. It's like Survivor Island, you know. It's just you don't know who's going to win this thing or who's going to get voted off. It's any given Saturday, and you know, you look at some of these teams we talked about, like Mississippi State and Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
You know, right now, yeah, if you're a gambling man, you're saying there's no shot Georgia's going to win that thing. But if you walk away from it, you know, late November and they come up with a victory, you could easily say, well, yeah, I guess I could see something like that coming. It's just who comes in prepared. There's been a lot of these matchups, and I just think this is the year that the Bulldogs take that step forward and start getting that recognition that they are one of the best teams in the West. You know, a lot of people love talking Alabama. They love talking LSU coming back and Arkansas getting there and Texas A&M paying their – I mean, it's like they steal all the storylines. But over there in Mississippi, there's a ball club that is just as good as some of these others, and they're just not talked about near enough. And I think that's kind of the – you know, they didn't really come out with a mission statement. It didn't feel like at media days. But, you know, when you talk to fans, they don't care. They're like, who cares? They're not talking about us. They'll be talking about us in November.
Right. Yeah, I think this is for whatever reason, people are sleeping on Mississippi State. You know, they typically do, but even more so this season. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I cannot believe they're not discussed more as a top 15 type team, because they've got all the pieces to put together a special season there in Starkville.
Absolutely. And if they're terrible, Mike, you better delete this pod. If they drop that LSU game, I'm going on here and logging on myself and getting rid of all the evidence.
Well, hey, buddy, we're pushing it towards an hour here. You got anything before we hop off for this show?
No, man. Again, it's just good talking about. We only got a couple teams left. Optimistically, we've got Georgia and Alabama, so I think we know how the ending of that will be. And, of course, Vandy. That'll be a fun one. So we still got 3 teams to get to, but it's fun, man. I mean, think about it. We spent half the show talking real news, actual news, coach clippings. It's coming out.
Yep.
You know, we're gonna learn some cool stuff along the way, and we'll be sure to get it out to you. So just make sure you're following everywhere. We've got a YouTube channel. We put everything up there. If we got a coach clip, Mike doesn't mess around. He cuts it down, puts it up there. Turn your notifications on. If your team's practicing and the coaches are set to talk, just put your notifications on, because we'll let you know when we got those videos up.
Yeah, no doubt. And tomorrow, Shane, Arkansas and Kentucky, they'll have their first media availabilities of the fall. So we're guaranteed to have some good stuff come out of those two, with many, many, many more to come. Football's just right around the corner. You know what?
Yeah, my favorite one today was like, yep, all you do is talk Tennessee. We're like, well, Tennessee and Mizzou and Vandy are the only ones in camps. So now everybody is. So we'll definitely include everybody as soon as we get anything for you.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, Shane, I appreciate you. As always, I appreciate each and every one of you for continuing to check us out. We'll catch you on the next one.
All right. See you guys. Go Dogs.